I wanted to find out why they were sober and Danny wasn't.
Mhm.
Why? Why did you get the program and Danny didn't? Danny's just as nice as you. Like I was like,
You're listening to When God Intervenes, the podcast where faith, hope, and healing come together for families with a loved one battling addiction. Hi, and welcome to another episode of When God Intervenes. My name is Daryl Rogers. I'm here today with Gina. And Gina, I apologize. I didn't make sure that I know how to pronounce your last name correctly. Is it Economopoulos? Am I correct?
perfect.
Oh,
Perfect.
good. I can't
Yeah,
believe I got
just
it
say it
right.
once. That's it. You got it.
Well, great. It's good to meet you. I'm so glad you were able to make it today and to be able to share your story with my listeners. I was just looking at your information online a little bit earlier, and I know that you used to be a nun. And
That's
I know
correct. Yep.
you share with me that you live in New Jersey now, and I know you have a story around addiction and your journey and some of the other things that happen along the way. And so, why don't you just start out and introduce yourself a little bit further, and just get right into your story?
That sounds great, Daryl. First of all, I want to thank you and all your listeners for allowing me to be here to share my story because it's a passion of my heart, of my own personal experience. Yes, my name is Gina, and I grew up in New York. I'm a Long Island girl, one from our eight. I'm one of eight kids, the seventh child, and had a great childhood. No, really, no complaints. My father was a hardworking Greek father, and my mom was an Italian who was a typical house mother raising eight kids. And she said that is the hardest job. Like they don't back then, like, how come they don't give us credit? And but yet in my eyes, seeing my parents, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. I wanted to get married at the age of 18 and have eight kids by 25. But I mean, that was my dream.
Uh-huh.
I was very much more with the traditional family, and I grew up like that, and so that's what I wanted. But in the long run, in hindsight, it did not happen that way. So I guess God intervened back then without me realizing it. But as my journey continued, throughout childhood, granted, I had unconditional love from my family, especially my parents, but Gina did not love herself. I was one of those, or I should say for myself, I was insecure. I felt out of place. I was searching for love in all the wrong places. And so I carried that inside me and I kind of grew in that because, I might have been happy on the outside. Yes, I have, but on the inside, I was there was that emptiness that I
Mhm.
look back now, it was like a soul sickness. It was just that's just how it was for me. A lot of things, and I think it contribute because when I was born with a lot of health issues. So I've had many surgeries throughout my childhood and was born with this and born with that, where my siblings, they were perfect. So as a kid, it's like, why can't I be athletic? Why can't I do this? And they were perfect. To me, they were, perfect, beautiful, athletic, popular. They had all the boys knocking down their doors, but not me. So I think that's what built up inside me. And plus the pressure around when you're around your peers, you try to be that. And I was born in the eight. I grew up like in the 80s in New York, and so I believe that contribute a lot, that did a lot of comparing, like, poor me, look what I didn't have, I'm here, or everything happens to me. Like, everything happens to poor Gina, and yeah, everything happens to me. Like I always said, if there was a house burning down, everyone would be free and I would either die or burn up. You know what I mean? I would suffer it all. So, but I went to college, through my dad sent us all through college, so it was great. Went to a school in Connecticut, and so that's where I did a lot of my partying scene, like drinking, and still, one would think at the age of 18 you'd like yourself. No, I didn't like myself. Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to be the center of attention and looking for love in all the wrong places, and then after college, I went to go live with my parents. So, by this time, okay, by now I thought I would have a boyfriend, be married, and have kids, but I didn't even have a boyfriend when I left college. All my siblings did, had they found their spouses, and I bartended. That's so I thought that was my, bartending. I had got a degree in social work, so, hey, I'm a social work behind the bar, and I
Uh-huh.
was part of that scene that I always gravitated to because I thought I was loved there, or looking
Mhm.
for that love. And and not realizing that I was sort of running away from myself, with the drinking and the pain I had inside me. And so during that time of bartending and living with my parents, at this time we're in Pennsylvania, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she was given 4 to 6 months to live, terminally ill, and who happens to be at home with my dad was me. So I fell into that role of taking care of my mom, which I did because the love they had for me. So I was like, of
Mhm.
course. Now at that point, I was trying to apply to cruise line, like everything. That was my, be like a Julie McCoy, hospitality plus, and go out there, be in the party scene. But once again, God intervened because my mom got sick. And so of course this was back in 1991. So I was trying everything to cure my mom. I was trying. And at that point, I did not have a relationship with God. I was raised Catholic, went to church, all that. But of course, college, it wasn't like I didn't believe, I just didn't need him. I didn't need him. And
Mhm.
then, of course, when mom's diagnosed with cancer, that she had 4 to 6 months to live, it's like, what is that? I started praying. I started going back to church. My parents, being a very devout Catholic, brings out the rosaries, starts praying. I'm like, okay, mom, you're cured. You're cured. Why not? Why not? That's what I so I could say 5 hour father, whatever it may be. Do this, do that, whatever. And but yet I thought I had my mom, cured. Like I was doing everything from prayers, from other, or whatever, holistic, whatever, like eat this, you do this, and you'll be fine. And but yet she died in 5 months. And because like I said, she had bone cancer and it went straight to,
Mhm.
she was already in the bone
Right.
throughout her body. And I looked at her and I saw her like someone, she never complained. She never, and my dad and I took care of her, and five of us, six of us siblings were around her bed when she passed away. And of course back then I didn't have a faith, I didn't have hope, and I didn't have any love. I didn't really have a relationship with God.
Mhm. Mhm.
I had a relationship with alcohol, but I didn't have a relationship with God because I would drink it away. So that was sort of the beginning when, once again, God intervened, but I did not realize it. And I was in such a dark place, and so that's where I was. Once again, now I'm searching for the meaning of life.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's where I came back to my Catholic roots, like the Catholic Church. And I'm like, oh, now I know what the meaning of life is. God, the resurrection, like the resurrection we experience on Easter. It
Mhm.
was like my through my mom's death. That's how I experienced, like, oh, now I got the resurrection. So I went from one extreme of living a Sodom and Gomorrah to the other extreme that everybody's going to, where hell, whatever. You gotta
Uh,
go to church, da, 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 gotta repent, everything like that. Uh, and then in that, I decided to become a Catholic nun. Not, I
mhm.
chose that avenue to be a Catholic nun. And once again, this is it. This is my life.
Yeah.
thinking, thinking that's it. And so I was a Catholic nun for 12 years in the South Bronx. We worked with the poor, a Franciscan. We followed the charism of St. Francis. I love the
Mhm.
poor. Uh, by nature, I have a heart of service, always giving, I always love. And so yeah, in a way, I did love being a nun in that form of fashion. I did make my vows. I married God, I married Jesus, I gave up my life of, I made the vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience for the rest of my life. This is it. But but in a nutshell, well, I left the nunnery. As you could tell, I'm not a nun anymore. It was back in 2008 that I left. I was in my 40s. I left. You want to say on good terms? I was depleted. I was broken when I left. During my experience as a nun, there were blessings, but then yet I suffered a lot. Whether it was rejection or it was just suffering. I just was, in other words, I look back, my personality, we just clashed. We just clashed. So, so when I left, I was at this point, God was still in my life, but
Mhm.
yet I'm like, I married him, and now here I'm not a nun anymore. And the community said that I was going to be with them with the rest of my life, like this, and just through a lot of pain and suffering. They sent me away, all this stuff, to find some help. They thought I needed help, and when I left, like the last words they said to me is like, "Oh, you don't belong here anymore," and I'm like, "What?" After 12 years, I gave my blood, sweat, and tears to you. You're telling me now I don't belong here? Now, mind you, Daryl, I was still like broken on the inside. Yeah.
Mhm.
To be honest, I was broken when I went into the sisters. I was still looking for that love and that acceptance
Mhm.
and from someone, thinking, okay, now it's the community now, because they all, because I'm a person that everybody loves. I mean, or you cannot
Uh,
love me. I have a
uh,
personality plus, even as a nun, I was a very famous nun.
yeah, I
And
can see
so
that. You very outgoing and very friendly. So, how old were you? How old were you? Remind me. I think you said it earlier, but how old were you when your mom passed away?
I was
When she first
23. I
23.
was
And then
23 going on 24. Yes, I was
when you
23 years
became a
old.
nun, how old?
What's that?
Yeah, when you became a nun, how old were you then when you went in?
I was about 29.
Okay, okay, all right. So
Yeah.
you said you did that about 12 years.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, all right. So pick up with the story. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, no, don't be sorry. Feel free to. I mean, this is a free flow conversation. If you
Yeah.
have any questions, I mean, I'm sort of sharing the surface of it. As you know,
Uh-huh.
I did write my journal. I wrote my book, and it was just published. But yet, here I was a nun. I left the nunnery, and then I went to go live with men with disabilities, Down syndrome, autistic, because that's I didn't know what to do. This was in the year 2008. I'm in my 40s now, 41, 42, 42
Mhm.
just about, and didn't didn't know nothing, nothing. I didn't know how to relate. I knew how to drink because believe it or not, in hindsight in the convent, I mean there was drinking. I was drinking then. Not to excess, but I always felt like I was drinking as a security blanket to get away from the pain, to get away. And at the end of my uh religious life, the superior did say that I was drinking too much. I'm like, not me. I'm Gina. I'm sister. Not me. Like this. And but in hindsight, it was if I wasn't consumed in the body, it was in my mind. Of just because for me, drinking was getting away from pain. Was running away from myself. So that's what I was
Mhm.
doing. And so when I came to live with the men with disabilities, I knew how to drink, so I would go back to my bar scene, yeah, plus take care of the men there, and that was where that I did that for 2 years, and it was a transition time because I was broken. I was totally broken. It was like a divorce. It was like a loss. It was a grief in itself. I mean, I already grieved for my mom. And this is a different kind of grief. I felt rejected, betrayed. Not only rejected by the community, but also a little bit by God. It's like, what's going on in my life? Why is this happening to Gina? Oh, everything happens to Gina. That's like my motto, on my head up until that
Uh,
time. And granted there was many blessings and I had a relationship, but there was something still empty inside me. So after being with them for 2 years with the men and women with disabilities, where I experienced a lot of healing because they love you unconditionally. It was easy to get back in the world. Like, I had to learn how to turn the TV on, get a laptop, get a phone, like things like that. What kind of clothes to wear, because a lot of the clothes I picked out looked like nunnery clothes. I was like, so after in 2 years for that, I was tired of serving because I did so much service, even as a nun and prior and before. And it's like, you know what, I want to do what Gina wants to do, and that was to go to the beach, and that's how I ended up here on the Jersey Shore, uh, finding a winter rental, coming to the beach, and living. And my dad, he was alive at the time, so thank God he helped me out. He's always supported me wherever I was. He says, "Don't worry, we'll make lemon out of lemonades," like things like that, or lemonade out of lemon, whatever, like that saying goes. And
Mhm.
he's like, when a door closes, a door open. He was always very supportive. He was very non-judgmental, and even though I was hurt by the community, so that he just was like, okay, we just got to keep moving forward, got to keep moving forward. And I did. And so, like I said, I got a winter rental here and I had to get a job. And so I went back to bartending because I was just like, what am I going to do? I was tired of serving, social working, or helping someone else. I wanted to do what Gina wanted to do. And the only thing she knew how to do was bartend, besides, you know, helping someone.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I'm not business oriented or whatever, I don't have the mind for business. If anything, I would give everything away. That's just my
Uh-huh.
by nature. And
Uh-huh.
so I bartended, found a job bartending, and maybe within a few weeks, a gentleman came in. His name was Danny. Comes in for a beer, sits, and we talk. Because you're right, I could talk to anyone. Just put me in a room, and I could find out everything about anyone. And
Uh-huh.
so we were talking, and then he started coming by again, right, on a regular basis, and we started dating. And I didn't tell him I was a nun because I didn't want to scare him. Because all the other guys prior, I would talk about, and I was a nun. I did this happened, and I never heard from them. I never knew why. I was like, okay, my first date, because at this point I realized my vocation to religious life had come to a close. So I was in another second vocation, finding someone, marriage, etc., whatever. And so here, I'm thinking with Danny, this is it. And when I did tell him I was a nun, he didn't run away. But then comes to find out that I came to find out that he was an alcoholic and he was drinking. And that was my first encounter really with an alcoholic, because I always thought an alcoholic was a bum under the bridge with a paper bag.
Mhm.
Even as a nun, there was this one guy who was a bum, but I always told him, go to confession, go to the church, and you'll be cured. Not realizing. So here, Danny, come to find out he's an alcoholic. He was drinking at the time, and I didn't really know, like I said, and he encouraged me to go to Al-Anon, which is a 12-step program for those who are suffering with alcohol or any addiction. And so I did. I went to an Al-Anon, and I went there figuring how I could stop him. What can I do if I say this, if I say that? And he did. He stopped. Back and forth. He stopped. Went away. Had rehab, because as we know, those with addiction or alcoholics, they're great people, just simply sick. That's what I come to.
Right.
You're a
Yeah.
great person, you're just simply sick. But I could not separate that in the beginning of my relationship with him. I thought, well, if you love me, you could stop. And
Uh-huh.
which that's what we all think. And I don't think, I think that's a healthy thought, because we don't know. I did not know at the time. And so he did. He's trying to stop. He went to AA, he went to a few rehabs, and then he finally found his sobriety out west in Arizona back in 2012, the summer of 2012, and he was excited. Once again, great guy, Danny. You're great, sober. I'm glad you are. And I said, I'll go anywhere with you. I support him. I'll support you in Timbuktu as long as you stay sober. And he said, oh yeah, so forth. And so he came back to the Jersey Shore, picked up his truck, and
Mhm.
he asked me to go for a ride because he had a job lined up. He was in a program out there, and everything, as you know, he was like, wow, this is great. This is great. This is my life. Once again, this is my life. And so I couldn't go, but his mom said I could go. So his mom being so happy, seeing his son sober, we're all happy, excited. I remember the morning that they left, I sprinkled with holy water, said a prayer, I gave them a rosary. You're good to go. We got this. But then in Indiana, well, the next morning, I at 6 o'clock in the morning, a.m., I get that phone call that nobody wants to get, that they were in a car accident in Indiana on Route 70 about 1 in the morning, and that the mother died, and Danny burned up, and we don't know if he's going to
Mhm.
survive.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, why me again? I mean, like, I'm like this, like, here he's sober, even, and I have to say he was sober for 60 days when this happened, but still
Uh-huh.
one day is great than any day, no days.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I had uprooted from the Jersey Shore to be with him. And the first thing I did was to reach out to the rooms of AA out there because that's the only thing I kind of knew, or was encouraged to do, find out some like-minded people that could help. And a group of them did come and help us, which was great. I never felt so much love from them, as well as Danny. They opened their home, they gave us their cars because we had nothing. Everything was in his truck. He was burned from the head down, so he did survive that accident. And then we got an apartment. This is our new life. He had to go for treatment with his burns. Plus, he has AA. Plus, he has people. But then, yet, as we know, addicts and alcoholics, what do we do with pain, or deep pain, or
Yeah.
trauma like him? Because Daryl, he ended up being conscious when he went through this accident. So he saw his
Mhm.
mother burn up. He
Mhm.
saw his. It wasn't like, I mean, they hit six trees,
Uh,
and to this day, I don't know why he wasn't knocked out, but
did he,
he
was there impaired driving involved in the wreck or, yeah, just
no.
happened at a wreck?
Well, you know what? He avoided the deer. Like there was deer.
Ah, okay, okay. Yeah.
Instead of hitting the deer, he avoided it and hit one tree in the middle, in the medium, and uh,
Uh-huh.
and so all I kept thinking at the time, and is like, God, why didn't he get knocked out? I mean, if you think
Mhm.
about it, you hit six trees, you that you and he we thought he got knocked out, but he didn't. He
Mhm.
told me, he says, gee, he says, I saw mom was dead before the burning came. And he said,
Mhm.
I couldn't do anything. I was trying to save her and I wanted to die. So he
Mhm.
knew before anybody else knew that his mother died on impact.
Uh-huh.
Wasn't from the fire, it was impact
I
and then
see.
burned.
Mhm.
So what does another alcoholic would do? He picked up again, and I was crazy because I did not understand. I wasn't. I don't understand. I didn't understand as much as I understand now about the disease of alcoholism, and so I went along the way I was feeling back then, the way that I flipped out. I kind of relapsed. I wasn't drinking because he was drinking, but I was just like, I can't believe it, like anyone, like I should say what I did. I kicked him out. You go find help, thinking, okay, he's gonna go get help. And he was trying, and he got an apartment right down the block from me. And then 6 months later, in March of 2013, uh, I found him dead in the apartment from the disease. He just
Mhm.
simply fell and hit his head. And so Daryl, that's where my heart was shattered.
Yeah.
God, at this point, I was trying to hang on to God. At this point, I didn't want nothing to do with God. I didn't want nothing to do with anyone. I didn't want nothing to do with life because I'm thinking, okay, now I'm in my 40s, mid 40s. I'm like, you know what do I have to live for? And not that I would kill myself, but I was just like, it doesn't matter. Whatever I touch is gonna, melt away, or a wrench will come in. Like nothing good. I'm not good enough for something good to happen to me or for me. Everything was happening to me, and
Uh-huh.
so so with his that incident of his death, I was in Indiana still, and I like I said, died too. I came back to the East Coast. I was a lost pup. I was broken. And at this point, I started writing out my feelings, like journaling. I journaled my feelings regards of what's happening. And then a lot of the feelings from being a sister, a lot of the feelings of growing up, it all come up that I wrote like 180 pages, put that aside. And when I came back to the Jersey Shore, I was just like a nomad, one would say. I was just a wanderer. Um, I was simply existing. I just was like, why am I here? Because I mean, Jersey Shore was not my home place. I was here I met Danny here, thinking this was it. And then I did get a job, and then for some reason, not for some reason, maybe this is when God intervened without me realizing it. Again, I went into a room, an AA meeting, because I wanted to find out why they were sober and Danny wasn't.
Mhm.
Why? Why did you get the program and Danny didn't? Danny's just as nice as you. Like I was like comparing, like, and the first meeting I went to was just an open speaker, and I went there crying. I'm sitting in the back, and a gentleman came up to me. Turned out that he knew Danny. I was like, so, and he invited me to go to other meetings, to close meetings. And I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. You guys are. And he says, no, come and just listen. You could say the desire not to pick up. It's to identify yourself, just to be part of the meeting. So I did, but once again, Daryl, I wanted to kill everyone. I just couldn't understand why this one had 30 years and had everything going for them, their grandkids and everything. And Dan, them, and some of them, to be honest, are sober, but they could be real jerks. Not, like I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't, I don't understand that.
Uh-huh.
And so I once again, it's like in my MO of searching, finding that piece, finding why, and during that time, I was going every day to this meeting, closed meeting across from the beach, just crying and everything. And then I came to realize 9 months or 10 months after I was going to this meeting that I'm an alcoholic. And that's where God intervened. God did for me what I could not do for myself. And once I said on April 2nd, 2015, that my name is Gina, I'm an alcoholic, I'm like, oh my God, who's that? What's that? Not me. I'm a sister. I'm Gina Economopoulos. I'm this, da, da, da. Everyone sees me this. Danny was all this. And then in hindsight, through my story, I could see how alcohol was like my good friend, or my became my best friend, how I ran to, and how I couldn't stop, which I thought I could stop. And so from that moment forward, I started working a program, a 12-step program of AA, where one day at a time. And I do have to say, the day that I said I was an alcoholic, everything I was carrying, all that pain, hurt, suffering, rejection, you name it, everything as a child, physically, mentally, emotionally, from the sisterhood, from Danny, grief, it just opened up. It just totally opened up. And then I had to learn how to embrace it, handle it, be healed without running to a drink, without going to a sofa couch, without feeling, you know, like just going, feeling bad, like,
Mhm.
because I was very good at doing that. And at this point, I'll just share this, is that by the time I came in the rooms, when I went into the rooms of AA without thinking I was an alcoholic, I hated God. I didn't want nothing to do with him. And people would come up to me, which they never knew I was a nun, in the beginning, would say, "Oh, don't worry, God loves you. God loves you." I'm like, "No crap, God loves me. I married him. He knows who I am." Like I knew he knew who I am. He was just simply on a couch. And then as time went on, I just kept being honest, open, and willing, one day at a time, experiencing the higher power that in the rooms that I had to go back to the beginning of my God as a higher power, and it's not Gina. I keep saying it's not Gina. And then in that, being able to allow, now I understand my higher power, whom I choose to call God. So he's back in my life. I got a new life with him, not only in the rooms of AA, but also in other means. Yes, I like to walk the beach, invite him in. I shared with you earlier, I got back reading the scriptures, just really getting into the word. And it's just, to me, these are all these bonuses for me
Mhm.
that it helps me enhance of not only, of course, now I want to live, and not but not only to not that I want to live, is to be sober. Now I know it helps me to be sober, but now he's in my life. He's part of my life. He's all my life. And and the funny thing is about it, Daryl, he's the same God that's been with me my whole journey.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
so
didn't change, right?
no, no, and so every day now, it's one day at a time, that I've literally learned to know that, God is so present, and just learning all that. But then at the same time, now being in the rooms of AA, I've also experienced losing someone to this disease.
Mm,
So
mm.
it's like I feel like I'm on both sides of the fence. Of course, I go back, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but I can't. That was Danny's story. That's how I have to. I remind myself and accept it. That's what God had for Danny, you know, to unfold the way he did. Granted, he died of the disease, but I always look at it that when he fell, that he fell into his higher power, to his God. He didn't die. He fell into his higher power.
Mm.
I've also learned another thing that has helped me, of when someone dies from this disease, especially with Danny, that when somebody dies, there's somebody in this world that got sober that day. And I really truly believe that. So I'm still waiting for someone to say, "Hey, my sobriety date is March 20th, 2013." Because I would go up to that person and say, "Just know that Danny died for you. So keep your sobriety." Because I realized we can't take sobriety for granted, can't take life for granted. Of course, can't take God for granted. And
Mm.
those I was taking, and now I have a strong heart and of a compassion to those who are suffering, to their families, because I've been on both sides of the fence.
Mm.
And if, as long as I could live my sober life, and God continues to intervene, putting people in my life where I could share. And that's why I felt inspired to write my story, which I wrote my memoir. It was published last summer, to spread the message of hope and strength. And that's what I'm here today with you, Daryl, to share my experience, strength, and hope, and to you and to all your listeners. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah. So glad you're here. Tell us, what's the title of your book?
Shake the dust off your feet and walk. And it's available
Okay.
on Amazon.
Okay. Okay. Good. Um, that's great. I'm gonna have to get that. I'll have to read it. So it just published recently, or yeah.
Yeah, it's since August. August it
Okay,
was
August.
published. So that is, to me, it's this whole new of spreading the word, promoting
Hmm.
it, whatever you want to say, just to touch at least one person, to tell them
Yeah.
that they're not alone in any
Yeah.
of this.
There's so many similarities in our stories. I know might not seem like it on the surface, but as you were telling your story, I was just making. I'm in the process right now of editing some videos that I made just yesterday, over the last couple of days, kind of going back. And I've told my son's story, Chase, who died in the wreck in 2014, but I haven't really told really that much of my story. And so I started sharing that. And I felt a lot like you growing up. Very didn't feel like I fit in, and felt like I was kind of the oddball out a lot of times. And I shared in a couple of those videos, there was a time when um, I don't remember exactly how old I was. Still pretty young the first time. I had a little accident. We played rough back in those days, and pretty much everybody I knew had a broken bone. All the boys, somewhere. And anyway, I ended up breaking out my two front teeth on the top. And when I say I broke them out, one was chipped, the other was kind of halfway broken off, and so the dentist, they put a cap on it. Dentistry's come a long way, over the years, but they put a cap on the one side and like a little corner filling on the other. My teeth continued to grow. And the dentist is like, well, we're not going to change that until your teeth are done growing. Then I'll go back in and you know,
Yeah.
fix it like it should be. But in the meantime, I would not smile an open smile. I kept my mouth closed, when I smiled, and I was very self-conscious about that. And then I developed acne, and it's like between all of that and a few other little things that were going on, I jumped in early on my flying career, but I struggled with confidence issues. Even though I was fairly successful with that, early on, I struggled with confidence, and it plagued me for a very, very long time. And really, it's been you know, it's there's been a lot of self discovery, but also asking, seeking for answers, asking God, what are the answers here? What's wrong with me? And how, why did you let this happen to me? And how do I fix this? Or can you fix this? And if you can fix this, can you please get started right away?
So
Because
true. Yeah.
I'm suffering here, and I was very quiet and held a lot of things in, so other people didn't understand, that I was going through this. They didn't see that side of me for the most part. I could hide it pretty well, So yeah, if there's anybody out there listening who's struggling with that, with
You're
the
not
with
alone.
yeah, you're definitely not alone. And I didn't realize. I mean, I knew my son Chase was very similar. And my mother always said that my dad was a pastor. Well, my dad, um, she always said he was very shy, and one of the hardest things to do for him to do, he felt called into the ministry when he was in his early 30s, I believe. And she said one of the hardest things for him to do was to get up into the pulpit and preach. He loved people and he loved working with people, and he ended up going to college, putting himself through college, kind of later in life, and then seminary. But he had a psychology degree, and so he was really good in with people and counseling people one on one and helping. And he helped a lot of people who had alcohol problems. Not many people went to any kind of treatment center back then,
Mm.
and he counseled a lot of people in those situations. But he struggled with that for a while, apparently, overcoming that, being able to stand up in the pulpit and speak and deliver a sermon. But I mean, when I was a kid, I thought he was great, from the pulpit. It never crossed my mind that he was like that. He had that issue. But then, like I said, my son Chase struggled too, and he was struggling more than what I realized. His thing was he was diagnosed ADHD early on. And so the biggest thing with him was he just had trouble focusing in the classroom. Well, part of that is the way the classrooms are set up nowadays. Most boys need more hands-on, particularly boys, probably a lot of girls too, but we need more hands-on training and too much time sitting at a desk in the classroom. And so he was bored with that. And he felt like because of that, he didn't fit in, and I didn't realize that until my wife just recently, and I haven't even shared this online yet, but she just a month or two ago discovered a note from his journal when he was in a military school, his junior year or senior year of high school. And that we had no idea. I don't think, well, at least I didn't. I can't speak for her, but I'm pretty sure she didn't either, that he was struggling so much internally with not fitting in, feeling like
Mm.
he was not smart because he, lacked focus in the classroom. Well, I knew he was smart. Um, he was very creative, so and I see that a lot with people who are battling addiction, that they're some of the smartest people and most creative people out there, and they have this one thing that's holding them back, and
Mhm.
so I can there's so many parts of your story I can relate to, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing with me and with the listeners those parts of your story.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Daryl. I do appreciate it. And knowing that you had lost a son to this disease, through the car wreck, it's just painful.
Yeah.
And one thing I've learned for myself, like when Danny died, I was so ashamed that he died as being an alcoholic. I was like, no, no, he just fell. He fell.
Right. Yeah.
And and then in my mind, because when I went to go check out his apartment afterwards, I saw the blood, I saw everything, and I in my mind, like, there was no empty cans of beer. There was empty cans of beer all over the place. There was no full can. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, he must have been detoxing. You know what I mean? I was trying to justify. I don't know what he was, but I know he was drinking, and I know it's because of the alcohol, whether it was detoxing or when he was drunk, that he fell and hit his head, and he was dead for a few days before I found him. But I know, and you probably have experienced this, is that you kind of like, and those our listeners, we feel like we're ashamed, like, oh, or even maybe someone is suffering from disease, and it's like, oh, I don't want to say my boyfriend or whatever. But there's nothing to be ashamed at. They're just great people that are simply sick. And I always look at it that now I look at, not that I always, but now, but it takes a lot to say, okay, this is God's story for them. This is God's story, and this is how it's unfolding. And for some, just keep loving unconditionally, follow your heart, whatever, things like that. So, and as you know, when we go through life, we learn a lot in hindsight. Like,
Yeah.
aha, wish,
Oh, yeah.
could have known that, could have done
Uh-huh.
that. But
Uh-huh.
then yet, where would I be today if I knew that? Or if Danny stopped, where would I be today? Because today, Daryl, I'm the most happiest person to myself. Like, I'm comfort in my own skin now. I
Mhm.
belong here. I'm happy, joyous, and free within my heart. Doesn't matter on the outside, but within, which that's the one thing I was longing for my whole life.
The
So,
struggle is part of our story, is part of what is we have to go through the struggle to get to become the person that God created us to be. We
amen.
get stronger through the struggles. And I was just I know I had another thought along those lines. I mean, the losing my oldest son, that was part of my struggle. And it's probably been the hardest part that I've ever been through. But I know what I was going to say, thinking about Moses. Look how many years Moses wandered in the desert before God brought him and used him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt into the promised land, or to the promised
Yeah.
land. He didn't get to see it, or
Yeah.
didn't get to enter it. But all those years in the desert, I mean, it's character building. We build character over time and we grow spiritually, and it's just part of the human condition, that I think the quicker we embrace that we're damaged goods. We're people we are broken people. We're living in a broken world,
Yeah.
and so the quicker we can embrace that and lean into the pain of it and learn from it, the quicker we can begin to grow and grow into that person, and allow God to shape us and mold us into that person
Mm.
that He created us to be.
Yeah.
That,
Amen. I totally agree with you and hear what you're saying, and it's so true. And it's ironically that you just said, like, lean into our pain, and that's what I've been learning. Is like we lean into God, lean into the pain, and in the long run, like I'm just thinking it right now. I mean, not that I have to think about this or pray about it, but leaning into my pain is like leaning with God in that pain because Jesus did the ultimate pain for us. So as we're leaning, I mean, I just thought of that. I mean, not that
Yeah, wow.
I'm no theologian or no nothing, but yeah, when you had said lean into the pain, I'm like, then why should I be afraid of leaning into my pain knowing that God is there? But I am a human, but yet,
Yeah, yeah.
like leaning into the cross, leaning into, there's there's no reason because ultimately God is there, and the taste of his glory is with that pain and everything. So, but that's enough of me. Sorry. I just now I'm
No,
going
no, it's
I'm
great. We're
gonna
having
have
a great
to I'm gonna have to pray about this and write it out in my little tangent of my
yeah.
theologian 101 Gina style.
We're having a great conversation here. I think it
Yeah.
really you're really making me think deeply about some of these things. And you're just you're a great person, Gina. You're really a sweet lady, and I've really enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you better. And I would say that God has intervened on my life today
Same
in
here.
having
Vice versa.
you come in and meeting you and having you be a guest on the podcast. And man, that's been great. I just feel
Thank
like
you.
I want to have I want to continue the conversation. We have to do this again sometime soon because I feel like I'm learning from you, just through the conversation is causing me to. I love to have conversations with people that make me think more deeply. And you're one of those people. And so I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, vice versa. Like I said, lean into pain. That's what I'm going to take away from in a positive way, not in a
Yeah,
fearful way,
absolutely.
because we
Yeah.
still have pain today. Life goes on.
Yeah.
So
And
thank you.
that leaning into the pain it requires a step of faith. We have to take a step of faith because being human, we do have doubts, and we do often doubt God and doubt His power and His sovereignty, and the more we have to grow that faith muscle to be able to say, okay, I don't know how this is going to work out, God, and I know you're leading me down this path. It sure is painful or seems painful. I don't know how to do this on my own, but I'm going to just step out in faith and have faith that you're going to get me where I need to go. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, so true. And also sometimes I'll say, God, I don't like this, but I'm going to put my trust in you. Like, I
yeah,
don't like it. I don't like what you're doing, but if this going to help me, because to me, for me, it's just being more honest. Like, and he knows my heart. He knows I don't like it. So it's like, why not tell you that? So,
right.
you
Uh,
know. But
so
anyhow,
let me ask you this just really quickly before we wrap it up. My listeners are mostly women from I shared with you earlier in there, and it's not just women. There are men also as parents, but um, it turns out it's mostly the moms. It's mostly the moms between about the ages of 40 to 70 who are the majority of my listeners, and they have most of the time they have a son or daughter battling drug or alcohol addiction. Now, sometimes it may be another loved one. It could be a sibling, it could be a fiance, just like in your situation, or a boyfriend or girlfriend or something along those lines. But it's usually someone who has a loved one battling addiction. And is there anything else that you would like to say to them? Like I know we've covered a lot of territory already.
yeah.
Is there anything else that comes to mind?
I just say, don't give up on your faith or on God. Just don't give up because, and of course, yeah, like yeah, just simply don't give up, and that you're not alone in the whole situation, and just know that that loved one has their story, and but just, I mean, there's so much but there's so much grace out there for us to receive to help that loved one, whatever it may be. But ultimately, I just, continue to grow your relationship with your God or your faith, and things do work out for the greater good. I can't tell you what the greater good is, but it's for the greater good. But yes, I tell your listeners that I share with your listeners that you're all in my prayers. Just don't give up, keep praying. And also, one thing I've learned with Danny's death is that, of course, in Al-Anon, you hear like the three C's: you can't cure, you can't control it, and you can't cause it. That's one thing that keeps says it, which is true, and you got to
Mm,
find it in your heart. But I always say the fourth C: you can have compassion. And what is
yeah.
compassion? It doesn't mean you're taking away their pain, but you could suffer with them, like compassion, like Jesus, have
Mm, hmm.
compassion.
Hmm.
So that's my fourth C.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that. And so where can people find you online? I know you have your book.
I
Tell us the name of your book one more time, and then if you have a website, tell us about the website.
Yes, my book is Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. It's about faith, sobriety, self-discovery, and healing. And you can find me on my website, Gina Econ for short.com. And then
Okay.
that's where you can find the book, or the book's on Amazon, or it's a message of hope and strength as well as sobriety. And yeah, so but that's it.
Well, good. Good. Thank you so much, Tina.
Thank you,
Thank you
Daryl, for
again.
having me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to When God Intervenes. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more families in need of hope and healing. For more resources and support, visit our website at thefamilyrecoverycoach.com. Until next time, stay strong and keep the faith.